Very well. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I see some 90 people connected already, so I guess, and it's 2:05, so I here in Nairobi at least, I suggest that we move forward with this official launch of the action-oriented VLR methodology. It is um, we came here today, after a long path that we walked together. It's more or less, I would say, 5 to 6 years that the VLR movement is taking shape. And I'm grateful that today connected, there are many of the partners that have worked along with Habitat in the past years to develop knowledge and support voluntary local reviews all around the globe. Today's session is a simple one. We are going to have the chance to hear some opening remarks to Shibra Naransuri and Emilia Seitz from Habitat and UCLG respectively, that have been the leaders worldwide of this SDG localization process from many points of view. And we will then introduce very briefly some of the key components of the methodology, launch it officially, and then hear from a selected panel of speakers about how voluntary local reviews have been put in action and transformed into transformative initiatives worldwide, from Tanzania, passing from Finland, Indonesia, and hearing also from colleagues from the financing sector. At this point, I just remind you that only speakers and presenters will be able to switch on their mic and camera. In case of any questions, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. We don't have translation, unfortunately, today. The session is in English, and I will be your master of ceremony walking you through the online session today. But without further ado, I would pass the floor to our first speaker for her opening remark, Shibra Naransuri, Chief of the Urban Practices Branch in UN Habitat and Senior Leader for SDG Localization within the agency. Shibra, over to you.
Thanks, Martino. Very good afternoon, very good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone. My goodness, if this was a real room, it would be what we call standing room only, and maybe a queue outside the door as well. This is fantastic. It's really great to see so many people connected online for this really important occasion, I would say. So big welcome, first of all, to the launch of this action-oriented VLR methodology. We would not have been here without the partnership we have with the United Cities and local governments. So allow me to first of all thank them and greet them and appreciate the enormous work that we have done together. The partnership that we have developed over many years, Emilia and your entire team. UCLG, for those who don't know, which is unlikely, has been a key player in supporting VLRs all around the world. But not just that, they have also had, they played a leadership role in elevating the concept of the voluntary subnational reviews. And I'm sure Emilia will tell us a little bit more about this in the process of enhancing the concept and the uptake of the agenda of localization around the world. And of course, a very big thanks to all the panelists we have and all the partners. As Martino mentioned, we will hear from countries and local governments from around the world who will tell us a little bit about how they have launched their VLR process, how they are seeing these as becoming really actionable public participation tools and instruments at all levels. And of course, I would be very remiss if I did not thank my own team, the UN Habitat, SDG localization and local governments team, which has grown and which has really shown the way on how to incubate a new line of work within an old organization and constantly innovating and carving out their niche and developing their value addition while accompanying the global process on SDG reporting. So thanks a lot to the team that has really been led by Martino, but there are many members of the team, and many of them are online today. Maybe we look back a little bit before we look forward. And some of you might remember that it was in July 2020 when the first wave of COVID was still very, very strong, that UCLG and UN Habitat launched the first global guidelines on VLRs during the high-level political forum. At that time, I think we were counting on some 40, 50 VLRs. We were not sure how the uptake would be, but we could see that this was becoming important. This was becoming an important instrument for local governments to engage on the SDGs and to have their voice heard on the SDGs. And now, just 4 years down the line, we're looking at 250 VLRs from 51 countries, 200 odd cities, many VNRs integrating local perspectives, even if there are no, VLRs in some other countries, representing the work and the views and the aspirations of some 450 million people. This is a big deal. But this is not the whole big deal of what we have achieved. This is not the whole story of what we have achieved in the last few years. VLRs have opened up new opportunities for cities to engage in the global arena, placing localization as a concept and as a strategy at the center of many international decision-making processes. Some of you might recall that last year at the second session of the United Nations Habitat Assembly, for the first time, a mandate, a resolution on localizing the SDGs was adopted universally by the member states, which tasks UN Habitat and partners to advance SDG reporting and places the VLRs at the center of some of these requests. At the same time, I think VLRs have also brought national and local governments closer in the spirit and strengthened the spirit of multi-level governance. Through the connections between VLRs and VNRs, new channels of dialogue have opened, many of which have resulted not just in talk, but in actually better coordination, a more coherent policy making, and more effective national delivery on the SDGs. And finally, I think a very important achievement has been that the VLRs are not just a tool for cities with a lot of money or a lot of capacity. They're not just for capital cities. They're not just for wealthy cities in the global north. We have seen VLRs, from Australia to Costa Rica, in Jordan and in Kenya and in Tanzania. We've seen that small and intermediary cities have taken ownership of the VLR process and used it to kickstart their work on the SDGs and to build a whole of society and whole of government narrative and approach on the SDGs. And we know that without this whole of society, whole of government approach, we will not be able to rescue the SDGs. We will not be able to get them back on track. Remember, last year we said only 12% of the SDGs are on track. And the work of local governments and local communities on VLRs and through VLRs is the game changer for SDGs and for achieving all the targets by 2030. But we're here today not just to recap on the past, but also because we want to look at the future. We want to see what VLRs can do and how beyond diagnostics, how can we leverage their potential for policymaking, for planning, for capacity building, for identification of projects, and for investments ultimately. Through the methodology that we're launching today, we hope that VLRs will become that cross-cutting instrument for local governments to plan and deliver development for all of their communities. But I'd like to flag what what is new in this, and then I'll leave it to the experts in my team to talk about the details of the methodology. What is its added value is the question that I ask my team all the time. I'd say three. One, that this methodology fills a gap. Compared to other guidelines, it is practical, it's ready to use, it's user-friendly for anyone of any capacity in any corner of the world who wants to undertake a VLR process. It provides a step-by-step approach, it provides a detailed and a tailored work plan for VLR development based on different kinds of phases and tracks and cross-cutting issues. So if you've never done a VLR, this is your starting point. This is the tool that will hold your hand in that process. And it's been built with a lot of, by documenting a lot of experience and a lot of different approaches that cities have applied on the ground. So it really draws from that evidence and provides a step-by-step approach. The second is that it helps to take the diagnostics and analysis to the next stage. It offers a structured approach to transform reporting into action. And it shows concrete ways on how data and information can be used by local administrations to spur action at the local level. A third, I think, is that it focuses a lot on collaboration. VLRs are not a product of produced by a local government department in its little shell. Really, this methodology highlights how and it gives structure to the coordination and collaboration mechanisms that are needed to develop a VLR. Collaboration between local teams, collaboration across spheres of government, collaboration across stakeholders, collaboration for data, for financing. It really shows that this is not a one person, one team, one unit, one organizational effort that will take you to success. And finally, it helps. It builds new practical tools. It's accompanied by really practical, simple tools to implement the VLR process, such as the data tool, connecting the SDG indicators with the global urban monitoring framework and the new urban agenda principles. So all in all, this action-oriented methodology aims to maximize the chances of success in implementing the SDGs and wants to leverage the comprehensive process of developing the VLRs to accelerate a much wider implementation process at the local level. That's pretty much it about the methodology. But colleagues, while we launch the methodology today, our team is already preparing on what to do next. We will soon start the preparation for the third edition of the VLR VSR Days with UCLG colleagues, many of whom are online. By the end of the year, we aim to develop the first fully open VLR dataset, comparing and analyzing VLR data to predict and complement development trends worldwide. This is not available yet, and I think this would be really new and exciting. Locally, we will focus on working with our local and national partners to scale up the work on VLRs, not just on a city by city, locality by locality, but into full-scale national SDG localization programs. Because ultimately, we have to move with speed and at scale. Colleagues, let us continue to work together to strengthen voluntary local reviews, to strengthen local action, and position these at the core of sustainable development and the achievement of the SDGs. Thank you. I leave it there, and I look forward to the exciting discussion to come in this session. Back to you, Martino.
Thanks a lot, dear Shipra, for bringing us in time and forward into future. I think a few of the important things that you've mentioned will be also highlighted through the presentations and discussion with our speakers today. I will then give the floor to our second guest for the opening remark, Emilia Seitz, from Secretary General of UCLG. Emilia, are you here with us?
I am with you. I can see you very well. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well. We don't see you. Can you? Are you able to turn on your camera?
My camera is on.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can see myself actually, and all of you. So
okay, but we cannot see you. But
the screen. just come and find me. I think you might need to give me an additional permission for the.
I think you, yeah, they need to give you camera rights.
Most probably. Let us work in the background while you start.
Okay. Yes, but very happy to intervene. First of all, thank you very much, Shipra, for those very inspiring remarks, and also for acknowledging the partnership that United Cities and local governments and UN Habitat have. It's an old and long-standing partnership that we renew as priorities in this world of ours shift, but there has always been a constant, which is the issue of localization. Localization, as in approaching every single agenda from the bottom up, thinking locally, allowing us to look for global solutions, and from a particular perspective of providing a role to local and regional governments, to the territories in those global agendas. And you are absolutely right. The kind of acknowledgement of movement that we see growing in terms of localization, and the VLRs are one piece of this movement, and this acknowledgement is very significant, and we might not be celebrating it like we should. I think the acknowledgement of the of localization in coming out of the Sustainable Development Goals Summit, the SDG Summit, is extremely important, and our frustration with the zero draft of the summit for the future is that it does not reflect that, right? Sometimes you don't understand why in these global processes, in this global context where we move, things that we learn in one process are not exported to the other. And the only thing that we can do is continue to fight the good fight, and to invest in local communities and local visions. For us, the voluntary local reviews are part of this localization movement that is linked with learning. It links with political will, and it's also linked with research around those building blocks. And the voluntary local reviews, which, like the voluntary national reviews, are pretty much a monitoring mechanism, have a different dimension from the perspective of local action, because they include a very strong political perspective, political will to involve the whole of society, the whole of communities, and also to shift paradigms in terms of actions and policy making. They are political, social, and they have an impact in the planning at the medium term. And this we said very clearly already in the first guidelines, which were analytical, analyzing the VLRs that we knew back then in 2020. So that political, social, and planning perspective is today still very alive in the way that we promote the voluntary local reviews. And like you say, they are very important part of a package. They are important part of having a national localization strategy. They are part of feeding the voluntary subnational reviews. They are part of linking the whole of the country agenda with the Sustainable Development Goals, which, as we know, is more than a classical developmental agenda. What we love about the voluntary local reviews and the voluntary subnational reviews is that they are relevant for the North, the South, the East, the West, and everything in between. It's relevant for for everyone. And in particular, we can see there is a strong connection between the voluntary local reviews and the capacity to develop voluntary subnational reviews and the appetite to develop voluntary subnational reviews. I have to say that the voluntary subnational reviews, which is this country approach to this monitoring mechanism, are of great significance for the Global South. And this year, again, we are going to be focusing on very, very important countries in the global South. We are going to be focusing on South Africa, Brazil, Costa Rica, Mauritania, Nepal, everywhere. So it's a very broad community that we are building, which we hope will be informing the interest of individual cities to do voluntary local reviews, but that might also allow for the national processes to be influenced by cities that, and this is part of the wealth of the importance that we're giving to this. There are many cities around the world that are doing second and third voluntary local reviews, which is exactly the idea. This is not a one-off exercise. You know, it is an ongoing process that needs to mobilize communities. And at the moment where the Sustainable Development Goal Agenda and Agenda 2030 are being used in a narrative as part of political ideas or ideologies, I think it is extremely important to counter-rest that kind of narrative with the very good examples and the inspiration that we have managed to have in many parts of the world. I would end by saying that I find extremely interesting how relevant the voluntary subnational reviews and the voluntary local reviews in the global north have proven to enhance the capacity of interlocution between local and regional governments and the national governments. I think the practices in Iceland, in Norway, in Germany, in Flanders, but also the Nordic approach to the voluntary subnational reviews, they have come together to prepare one single voluntary subnational review, is a very good example of how these kind of exercises can really improve the multi-level governance, the dialogue between the different spheres of government, and bring different solutions up front. So from our side, in United Cities and local governments, a commitment to continue working with you on Habitat and connecting the dots between all the different agendas that we need to implement together and to shape together. Commitment to support the communities of localizers all over the world, including in these exercises that you are mentioning, as well as part of national approaches to localization. And I think Local 2030 can play a very important role in this. And commitment to connect between local and regional governments and other actors at community level, also local communities that organize civil society and others that can play an instrumental role for transformations. Finally, to also comment that we think that there is a great opportunity to have thematic or focus approaches to voluntary local reviews in terms of gender, in terms of human mobility, in terms of resilience, that can be very, very interesting to help us include this tool in other conversations that are happening at international level. So I will stop here. Thank you from the UCLG team as a whole that is here joining us, and looking forward to continue this collaboration with you. Thank you again. Thank you, dear friends.
Dear Emilia, thanks a lot for your opening remarks, always very informative and insightful, and somehow always innovative. It has been for years, really, that we are connecting online or in person, and every time there is something new to learn, which is really great, and we are grateful for that. Global South, Global North, VLR, multi-level governance, and I think that the point that you mentioned, which is actually a discussion that we are having also internally with UN Habitat about potential thematic focuses of VLRs, is a great value and can be a strong way forward, specifically when it comes to promoting and using the local reviews for understanding, again, development trends. It's the power of VLRs. It's for the locality, but it can also help be beyond the territory itself. And this can be a point of connection that is particularly important, and we will try to collectively work towards together. Colleagues, lots of people connected, so we are passing the 120. So I would say a great thanks to our first speakers, Shipra, Emilia, for your open remarks, and we get into the details of today's sessions, which is the launch of the methodology and the series of panelists that we have today. I will share my screen just for 5-10 minutes maximum, just to share with you the structure of this methodology and then launch the panel. Allow me a second to share the screen with you. I hope you can all see well, and there are no issues. Please interrupt me as I don't see the room anymore by sharing the screen. Colleagues, action-oriented voluntary local reviews, a methodology for partners of UN Habitat, and of course, together with UCLG, you will find the link here, but it is not yet time for a lunch. Where do we come from? Shipra, Emilia have mentioned global voluntary local reviews guidelines, regional VLR guidelines developed, for example, by the regional commissions that have really added value to the specific understanding of each regional dimension of VLRs. Many platforms here, you have access to the UN Habitats one, but many are also existing. We are coming from years of implementation, more than 260 VLRs being published, 202 local regional governments have at least one voluntary local review. And let us highlight one point that Emilia shared, that the VLR is not a one-off, but it's a continuing process of monitoring, adapting, and improving policies and initiatives for the SDGs. From UN Habitat side, we had the chance to really directly support the more than 36 cities in developing VLRs all over the globe. And this has been combined with a series of capacity building offering, many of which has been led by the colleagues of UCLG Learning, but also from colleagues of the UN, such as the regional commissions and UNDESA. This is a package of information, of knowledge, of network that is extremely valuable. And this is the experience that we have used to build the methodology. But the remaining questions are still there. How to conduct a VLR that is impactful, that makes the best use of limited resources, which is kind of always the elephant in the room, and uses existing indicators and limited data. What comes after the VLR in terms of planning, budgeting, initiatives, and how it is connected to other ongoing initiatives or policies. Many of these questions have been addressed, but almost never systematized into something that is coherent and global. Our answer really goes into trying to focus all of this into one single document that is action-oriented, that builds on the potential of VLRs and pushes them to the next level. To do so, what we thought would be extremely important, as Shipra mentioned, is to provide a detailed, tailored structured new tools, so something very practical that almost, someone can study and pick for practical use in the daily implementation of the SDGs and development of the VLR. Of course, we have not developed this alone. UCLG and UN Habitat have worked together internally within the UN Habitat structure. Here you have just some of the colleagues that have participated into the review. UN Habitat gathers a unique expertise on planning, financing, national urban policies, innovation, and really the colleagues have been a unique resource of information expertise to strengthen the methodology as much as our partners within the UN system, outside of the UX system, research center and bilateral development partners have been at the center of this exchange. Now, getting into the details of the methodologies, colleagues, we have tried first and foremost to use a format that is user-friendly, that is light, and that can and that is a bit, I would say, less boring than many others of the UN documents that sometimes I find myself studying. So, and we have taken collectively inspiration also from the UCLG traditional design, which I think is quite innovative and globally recognized as unique. So you have here the table of contents, a kind of introduction is followed by a focus on the coordination and partnership needed for the development of the VLR, a proposed work plan that is then divided, that it then deeps dive into the work steps, phases, tracks, and cross-cutting issues. I will show you immediately how this works in practice, and the methodology concludes with an overview of the structure of the VLR and chapter proposal. Now, the work plan is what you see on your right. You have phases that are organized more or less across 10 months of time for the development of the VLR. Each phase is then articulated into tracks. The data tracks has the collection and analysis of the quantitative data, the stakeholder engagement track for the mobilization of different stakeholders, local, national, international, that needs to feed information within the VLR development, and the strategic action plan. Here is where our VLR adds value and it is transformed into something that is actionable and transformative for the territory. Every VLR that we have encountered has somehow 3 cross-cutting issues that needs to be addressed, or at least there are complementary parts of its development. The multi-level governance, hence how is the VLR and how can we connect a VLR better with the national government, the capacity building, and this is a fundamental component of VLRs because we have seen how through VLRs many local and regional governments, specifically those with limited technical, human, and resources capacities, have used the VLR process to enhance those resources. And then finally, the advocacy and visibility. This is what also Shipra was mentioning before, the unique opportunities that VLRs have opened internationally. All of this in one single methodology. To the right, you will see basically the translation of that work plan into work steps. This is the breakdown of the work plan and how to complete a VLR process from A to Z to the minimal detail. Here you have an overview of which are the phases. I think that for the context of today's discussion, probably the review and strategy phase, and so the phase number 3 and the phase number 4 is where we try to understand and introduce an innovation as the definition of the strategic step, the adoption of the VLR recommendation, the launch of the VLR as one of the building pieces for its action-oriented impact. Going through the methodology, this is the first phase that you will be able to see, and the methodology goes into the breakdown of the tracks. They are very extremely structured in a way that is easy to follow and that has a focus on the process, the outputs, and the tools that can be used per each of the track for the data. So how to collect data and which are the tools available, the stakeholder engagement, how to, in terms of time, in terms of approach and tools to be used, and finally, strategic action plan. How do we transform a VLR into something that is actionable? The same goes for the cross-cutting issues from multi-level governance to advocacy and visibility. Just a little focus on the strategic action track that we have just seen. The breakdown of the different work steps within the strategic action track of the VLR methodology really passes from an understanding of the policy, the existing one, from horizontal to vertical, as a VLR should be building on policy coherence, an exercise together with stakeholders of visioning and prioritization based on the data and information available. And here is where we want to put the accent on the strategic recommendations. We have called them recommendations, but the beauty of this methodology is that, of course, adaptable and applicable to every different context. Hence, if from recommendations we want to move forward to already planning, to already the prioritization of certain projects development, this is something that you will find in methodology and guidance on how to bring your VLR even a step forward. Following the recommendations, the strategic recommendations, we have what we call the implementation and monitoring dimension, which is provides a framework on how to implement those recommendations and monitoring them in terms of their impact, hence providing inputs for adapting those recommendations accordingly. Last but not least, what comes next? This action-oriented voluntary local review methodology is already being used because this is simply the result of ongoing processes. So we will continue the rollout and implementation of the globe. We will further develop the practical tools. There is a huge request of practical tools on the how-to and the simplification of certain processes that passes through the really practical tools that needs to be friendly and then user-friendly and usable by every possible local governments from the globe. This action-oriented methodology is meant to be flexible. We want to continue collect feedback, continue the global exchange, continue collecting information from technical support directed to cities and countries, and we aim to update at least on a yearly basis the methodology with the new information collected. The idea is also that this update and strengthening of the methodology comes with the connection with other teams, organizations, initiatives. Hence, we are, of course, this is not the only methodology that looks into the VLRs or anyhow the processes of SDG monitoring, and we really want to collectively strengthen that connection for more information. Colleagues, this was a quick overview, very quick overview of our new action-oriented VLR methodology, which is now officially out. You will find it in UNHabitat website, UCLG website. You can scan the QR code here. And at this point, please, the methodology is for you to be used and for us to work together to make this a successful tool and to make the localization of the SDG possible. Thank you, first of all, for listening to this presentation. And I will give the floor back to myself. And I will ask, please, the colleagues eventually to put exactly, you see the colleagues have already put into the chat the link to the VLR methodology. Please have a look at that if you want to download the PDF and reach out to the teams also when it comes to the use of the practical tools. I don't want to talk too much again, hence I would like to move immediately to what comes next, our panel. We have today the chance to hear about VLRs and specifically their potential for action-oriented, for action and transformative impact at the local level from partners from across the globe, from Tanzania, Indonesia, Finland, but also financing institutions such as the Deutsche Bank. It's a great panel. I am extremely glad to have the speakers here. I think that this is going to be very interesting. So I would like to immediately pass the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Idfi Septiani, Head of Cooperation Division of Samarinda City in Indonesia. Idfi, I see that you're connected. Are you here with us? Idfi? Okay, maybe not. Ilfi is connected. If someone can reach out to Ilfi to make sure that he is able to unmute himself, that would be fantastic, colleagues. I see, I'll try to move to the next speaker then to move forward. Angelista Kigaha, Director of Local Governments of the President's Office of the Regional Administration and Local Government of Tanzania. Angelista, I saw that you are also connected. I hope that you can hear us. Angelista? Stella, I see that you are connected. Do you want to take the floor on behalf of Angelista? Okay, colleagues, seems that we have a bit of issues on getting our speakers, so I hope that I am pretty sure that Evelina is connected. Evelina, are you with us? Yes, thank you. We will try to get.
Yes, I am.
We will try to get a second to the other speakers. Please, I'm sorry for calling you in, but if you want to just give your reflections and kindly share your inputs and ideas, specifically building on the Great Finnish experience. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction and for the possibility to participate in this discussion, Martino. And thank you to Shipra and Emilia for such inspiring words. And also to all colleagues here that I wish to hear from and have your inputs on this specific topic. My name is Evelina Kiemamajanen, and I am here to represent the Association of Finnish Local and Regional Authorities. But even more specifically, I'm here to represent the 6 largest cities in Finland, who are in many ways frontrunners of sustainable development and SDG work. Okay, the first things that came to my mind is the importance of linking VLRs to municipal strategy processes and actual strategies. And to do that, you have to make sense of the SDGs. And the SDGs really make different sense for politicians, for office holders, for experts. And you need different vocabulary and different perspectives for that. And you have to make the agenda somehow relevant, especially in the Finnish context. It's really hard work, and there are many different competing frameworks for that. One very important thing to me is voicing SDGs the way that any particular city in question, they understand them and they understand what makes sense in their environment and context. And engaging the relevant and vulnerable groups is obviously very important, and this is something that gives you better understanding for the local context as well, and communal context. And of course, global partnerships. We have been working with UN Habitat now for several years, and it's been amazing. We have the Mwanza Tampere VLR twinning, some amazing moments with UCLG and UN Habitat in different events. And the cooperation has been very effective and fruitful. And one other thing is the Nordic VSR that we are now compiling, and it's coming up in July. And we are really excited. And thank you, Emilia, for pointing it out. We are really excited about it. Shall I go on still?
Please, Evelina, as you wish.
Okay, so I'm a coordinator of the network called SDG46, and it's comprised of the largest cities in Finland, Helsinki, Espoo, Tampere, Vantaa, Turku, and Oulu. And 5 of those cities have also launched 1 or more VLRs during the years that I've worked with them. And they also cooperate a lot outside the network, but the network is very important for them. And we have realized that having frontrunners is actually very beneficial for all the cities and municipalities in Finland. And there's so much to learn and co-create between them. The aim of the Finnish cities is really to localize a holistic view on sustainability in all levels of their organizations. And for these, VLRs are really significant. It's a great tool for it, but it should be a living document, and you should use it to steer SDGs. Some challenges that the 6 cities have reported to me are, well, making sense of SDGs is not easy. It's a lot of work. And also the reporting, how to motivate people report more than once is many times quite difficult. So what we suggest is that VLRs, like you have now told us, Martino, just now, VLRs should really be tailored for the city's needs, and they should reflect their unique qualities, and they should serve the needs of the city and not the other way around. So then they are useful as tools. And also different times need different strategies, and indeed different VLRs. So the framework and the reporting requirements should be agile and adjustable. Okay, just jump in, Martino, if I need to stop. I don't know how much time I've used, but
please, you still have a couple of minutes.
Great. Okay, so I was also asked to mention something about the Finnish SDG ecosystem. It's not really there yet, but we are building it. So we want to have all the stakeholders of SDG work working and communicating together in Finland. So multi-level governance and cooperation are really essential to achieving SDGs. And the dialogue between the levels of governance, it ensures that the voices of all stakeholders are heard, or at least there is a better possibility for it. And the significance of cities in promoting sustainable development goals should be really crystal clear to all levels, from local to global. National reporting really misses a vital component if VLRs are overlooked. And the cities producing VLRs in Finland actually cooperate quite a lot with the national VNR team and the Secretariat of Sustainable Development that is placed or located in the Prime Minister's office in Finland. And I think this next VNR that we are going to have from Finland next year. So the biggest cities are actually writing some of the VNR this time, and this is quite incredible. And the Nordic VSR, I'd like to mention it again. It's also a great proof of cross-border multi-level cooperation and co-creation as well for promoting the Agenda 2030. And I think having the Sami people and the voice of the youth there, as well as the wide range of municipalities, it brings so much added value for the VSR. But I'd like to end my points with saying that really none of the reports and strategies should be done just to report the past or document something that's a vision or ideal, but to use these strategies, VLRs, reporting, as tools for action and development and building a better future for next generations. Thank you.
Evelina, thanks a lot. And I think that, I mean, this your point of view being the middle ground in between the cities and the national government is actually extremely important. And the Nordic VLRs that have been emphasized a few times is also, you know, that potential of cross-border cooperation on the monitoring of the SDGs, and now cities can come together. There is a point here which is quite interesting. VSRs specifically building on action-oriented VLRs can really help. I mean, I'm talking and I'm connecting also to what will be our next speaker, Afif. I'm looking at you. How sometimes financing institutions will need an aggregation of needs, of priorities, because it's quite complicated to get to the tailored level of one single city. Hence, the action-oriented VLRs combined within VSRs can help in bridging those gaps. Evelina, thanks a lot for being with us today. Please remain connected if you can, in case there are any questions from guests. And I will move to today's next speaker, Afif Chovduri. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. Afif, pardon, investment officer from the Deutsche Bank. Afif, thanks a lot for being with us today. And I have, in this hall, you've seen the presentation, you've heard Evelina, you've heard Shipra. We have had chats before with regards to the same topic. So you are not new to what is being discussed today. And it's incredibly important to have you here today, because when we talk about action-oriented, when we talk about what comes next after the VLR, there is a component that is, of course, the one of resources, financing, and cooperation with the financing institution. So I would like to reflect eventually on what is needed to systematically use the capabilities of financing institutions to localize the SDGs from a financing perspective. And in your opinion, what obstructs the integration of the SDGs into local business activities? If you give us a couple of words, thanks a lot, Afif, again.
Yes, thank you very much, Martino. Afif Chovduri is my name. I work in the private bank division of Deutsche Bank in the Chief Investment Office, and I'm very happy to be here to represent the perspective of a financial institution, which is also part of a larger private sector. And there have been, so the speakers so far have already said a lot of things that perfectly blend into how we evaluate the situation. And you have asked me the perfectly valid question about how can we really systematically utilize our capabilities, right? So we have already talked about examples and places where we are already seeing success stories. But what can we really do in order to leverage our capabilities and do the big jumps, so to speak, because time is running fast, and we all know this. And the good news in this regard is that we are not starting from scratch. And let me take a few steps back with this regard. The most important lever to fully utilize the capabilities of the financial institutions or the financial sectors as a whole is to properly enable assessment of risks and returns. And this is the good news. So here's where we need to do work, but this is also good news because processes are already in place. Financial institutions have been developing and refining their risk assessment models for their own loan books for decades now. And what it really comes down to is understanding what exactly are we financing and what is the economic dimension behind it that we're financing. Because, and this is something I really would like to emphasize, it's very, very important, we can share similar values. It's not about the values that we share. It's more about the fact that we and you have all the speakers before have also, Evelina, you have also mentioned this before, we have to take into account all stakeholders, and all stakeholders have different interests and roles to play. And we are a part of the private sector that operates under a certain mandate. This mandate is being questioned increasingly by society, rightfully so, in the face of climate change and so on and so on. But on the individual company level, or in this case, the level of a individual financial institution, as of now, the question that drives our actions is: what is the risk-adjusted return of this endeavor that we're aiming to finance, and what are the opportunity costs? So what would happen if we not do it? So to make this more tangible as a very first step, what is the probability of us to not receive back the money that we have lent? That's the perspective that we are taking. And in order to enable this, we really need to think systematically everything that has been mentioned so far from the perspectives of all stakeholders, and also do not have a, let's say, siloed view to the SDGs themselves, right? So let's take SDG 4, quality education, for example. I think we can all agree that education is important, both from a human development perspective, right, from the perspective of an individual, but also from a large economic perspective, because you need to develop the human capital to enable future growth and so on and so on. We would all agree on that. But the question is, how is better education going to result in future cash flows? So what is the accumulating result of all of this going to be, and how is this at the end going to support paying back the loan that I have given, or the money that I have lent? And based on this probability that I've talked about, how high is the probability that I'll receive my money back, we can determine a price of this endeavor. And in essence, this price is the key lever to systematically integrate SDGs into our business activities. Of course, this will then again have further actions that need to be taken. We need people that are able to understand what kind of projects we're talking about, the risk dimensions, the return dimensions, and so on and so on, how different SDGs are associated with each other. This is not necessarily the kind of expertise that you would find in a financial institution, which is already changing, but let's say on average, you will encounter an economist by training or a banker by training if you go to a bank. So these type of capabilities is something that we need to develop. And I believe there was also another question that you've asked, right?
Yes, indeed, and thanks a lot. I was thinking about what do you think as abstracting the integration of the SDGs into local businesses activities?
Yeah. So I think we have already mentioned this. There are certain dimensions to these questions. So the first one is that we are talking here about local projects, right? Really things that are being implemented on the ground, and therefore you don't have necessarily the size effects that would facilitate, let's say, or make everything a little bit easier. If we will be every ticket would be in the billions or in the hundreds of millions, it would make things a lot easier. But we are talking about small scale projects on the local level, and this kind of may sound a little bit contradicting, because we have been doing this forever. Banks have been doing small loans to their clients forever. You can go to your bank and ask a loan, for example, for as little as a few hundred euros if you need it, depending on the product that you request. But the reason why this works is because there is an established market already behind it. And to explain this, maybe let's take one step back and take an example from the IT sector. There is an effect called network effect, which is crucial to all companies in the IT sector that are offering platforms. So to give you a very simple example, you have a messenger app on your phone. If only one of your friends use this messenger app, you're not going to use it. It's not helpful to you. But if all of your friends use this messenger app, suddenly the possibilities are multiplied, and this becomes a valuable product to you. So the amount of users determines the value of the product, and we have something similar here with regards to translating the implementation of SDGs into the financial sector. So if there are more competitors, more banks, more financial institutions competing to do the financing, this will result in more efficient pricing, because now you're not the only one that is determining the price of a SDG-related project, but the others are doing this as well. You have an actual market. And this more efficient pricing will lead to more efficient processes within the bank and so on. So on. I've elaborated this already. We have been developing our risk assessment models for decades now, and this process will also need to start within the realms of SDGs. And I can understand that for some that are listening, it may sound a little, let's say, cold calculated when we are talking about markets in the context of SDGs. But ultimately, this will be the enabler for financing, because it also facilitates a common understanding, right? So to give you an example, you go to the bank and you are asking for a mortgage for a house. Basically, every single bank that you go to is going to do more or less the same to identify the interest rate that you receive, to identify the exact parameters of the mortgage that how you're going to pay it back, and so on and so on. So there is an industry standard, established industry standard. And creating a market will just facilitate and enhance this process of creating an industry standard. That's why I think it makes it really, it may sound a little bit cold at the beginning, cold and calculative, but it is really going to be the thing that drives it forward.
Afif, thanks a lot. I have personally, it's an extremely lucid explanation, which is something that I think many people in this room are appreciating, and coming from a few hundreds of meetings on VLRs, SDG monitoring, we need, and I'm putting myself first, more of these lucid explanations. And I think I just want to build on one thing that you mentioned of all of these, which is the call calculation might seem to be something, no? But also the need for understanding and skills from your side to understand the projects eventually. So there is probably something that we need to align the language and the understanding. That's probably something that where we need to work together in order for a part of this room, this virtual room today, to better understand the language that you're bringing in, the needs that you're bringing in. Somehow we respond to different words, different rules. This doesn't mean that we cannot work together. So the trick, and we are at the very beginning of that process, is to find the anchoring when these two words can talk to each other. And a better understanding of one from the side and the other on this other side, it can be profoundly important to start exploring in that sense. And I am thinking here about the simple fact that not every local governments, and I'm thinking about probably not all of them, actually the majority of them will not have the capacities to deep dive in what you're mentioning, to have someone that it really looks into international financing, that is able to speak the same language, that is able to understand the same language. Local governments employees are trained on different issues, governance issues, administration issues. So I really hope, and this is maybe a call for this group, and something that I hope that we might want to work together, Afif, to start to crack the nut and eventually create those enabling environments for some local governments and local colleagues to better understand how they can work with you. Of course, we can facilitate, but the beneficiaries, or at least the partners, it's not us, it's the international finance system and the cities. Something that you have mentioned, the scale, finding the most efficient projects, most efficient processes, most efficient pricing. This is something that I would like absolutely to deep dive eventually into a specific session. And we will also hear, Afif, our closing remarks from Laura Petrella, which is the head of the financing and economic session. She has definitely much more experience within UN Habitat than anyone else, also to pick up on some of your points. Thanks a lot, Afif. Thank you very much. Please, again, stay connected in case you can. And I see that Itfi Septiani from Samarinda City, head of the cooperation division, is connected. Itfi, can you hear us? Yes.
Yes,
Are you
I
able
can.
to mute yourself? Yes, super.
Finally, I
Thank
can unmute myself.
Sorry, we are encountering some technical problems today, colleagues, but there is a full team working on the background to solve them. Thanks a lot to the team as well. Itfi, the floor is yours. I know that Samarinda City is working also in the context of UCLG networks to develop a VLR, and actually the fact that you are in that process makes even more interesting. Would you tell us more?
Okay, Martino, thank you very much. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this important event. Well, I'm sorry because I had a technical problem. I followed this event from the start, but when you called me, I tried to unmute, but I couldn't. So, but thank you for your team. So finally, I'm here. Well, today I'm honored to share how the city of Samarinda has adopted an action-oriented approach to the voluntary local review methodology to address sustainable development challenges. By focusing on specific sustainable development goals, we are committed to creating real impactful change in our community. So here is my series experience in developing a VLR and SDGs localization strategy. In Samarinda, we have embraced the VLR process with a keen focus on SDGs goals number 1, number 3, number 11, 13, and 17. So we have 5 goals in our VLR. So these goals resonate deeply with our city's aspirations and challenges: poverty reduction, health and well-being, sustainable urban development, climate action, and fostering partnership. By concentrating on these SDGs, Samarinda can tailor its data collection and stakeholder engagement effort to address these thematic areas, leading to a nuanced understanding of its unique challenges and opportunities. So the added value of the action-oriented components is collaborative initiative. So the projects are designed to foster partnerships across sectors, ensuring cohesive approach to tackling issues like poverty and health. So we built we make a strongly partnership with the pentahelix, and then the second, integrated urban planning. So the policies focus on creating sustainable and resilient urban spaces that contribute to health, well-being, and climate action. And then targeted health and poverty reduction strategies. So these initiatives are developed to specifically address health disparities and economic vulnerabilities within the community. So from the recommendation to action, we have the 10 flagship program of Samarinda City. So the first flagship programs is Community Development and Empowerment Program. So this program is community participation based through neighborhood association. So we have the neighborhood association, which is used for small scale infrastructure development and community empowerment, such as conducting training for residents who do not have skills, which become their capital to work or start a business. So the city government provides a fund of 100 million rupiah. So it's about $6,500 USD for each neighborhood association. And then the second flagship program is flood control and modern drainage system development program. The third, modern and environmentally friendly mass transportation system development program. The fourth is social security number program. So this program about one card for all services. This is an integrated poverty alleviation program that provides services and social protection, including social assistance and social security. So the type of services include education aid, health, and also access for loan, very soft loan from the bank. And then the fifth program, flagship program, is Smart City Plus program. And then the sixth, Doctor on Call program for emergency, elderly, and toddlers. And then the seventh program, Educational Equipment and Facilities Assistance program to support 12 years of free education. And then the eighth program is Neighborhood Owned Business Development. So this program based on sub-district. It calls BOOM RT. So this BOOM RT is an economic entity to improve people's economy by utilizing local economic resource potentials in their neighborhood association environment. So the goal is to raise the level of welfare and productive efforts. And then the ninth program, development program of green, open space, recreational parks, and one playground per sub-district. And then the last program is creation of 10,000 new entrepreneurs program. So the goal is to create job opportunities post the COVID-19. Well, implementing the 10 flagship programs in the city of Samarinda present a series of challenges that require measure and innovative strategy for resolution. So along with the solution and learning to overcome this obstacle, so with the community development and empowerment program, the challenge is enhancing community participation in development and empowerment programs. So we have the solution. So we establish effective two-way communication through regular meetings. So we make a lot of FGD. We make a lot of community meeting, and then we also use the social media and community-based apps. So provide education and training to raise awareness and enhance the skills of the residents. So by implementing this program, we're learning that the active community involvement can be strengthened through transparency and opens by the government in every activity process. So and also about the social security numbers, we also have the challenge. Our challenge is ensuring data integration and security within a single service card. So to make a solution over this challenge, we develop application and integrate the data. And also we conduct community education and awareness on the benefits and usage of the card. And the learning from this challenge and this program, that public trust can be improved with transparency and data security guarantees. And the Doctor on Call program for emergency, elderly, and toddlers, we also have a challenge by implement that program. So the challenge is effectively reaching the elderly, toddlers, and emergency situation. But we have the solution. We utilize digital platform to facilitate access to healthcare services and train community health workers. And then the last one is about the development program of green open spaces, recreational parks, and one playground per sub-district. The challenge is increasing the availability and maintenance of green open spaces. So it's easy for us to develop or to make the new green open spaces or the recreational parks. But the problem is what happened after we have the green open spaces. So the solution of this challenge is we involve the community and private sector in maintenance and development of parks through park adoption program. So based on these challenges and also our solution, so the collaboration on pentahelix is very important, and also the political will from our mayor and his strong leadership is very important to deliver all this program in our city. And then
Can I
yes.
ask you to please conclude, if you don't mind, being mindful of time? Can I ask you to please conclude, as being mindful of time for the others? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So okay, so the conclusion that we are in Samarinda believe that through collaboration, innovation, and action-oriented result, we can achieve the sustainable development goals and create a brighter future for all. So thank you for your attention, and we look forward to collaborating with global partners to share knowledge, learn, and together make a difference.
Ifri, thanks a lot. And I was taking notes while you were explaining, while you were presenting, while you were highlighting how you're connecting your VLR process to the flagship programs, to the many flagship programs that you are currently implementing. And I think, and I love few of the terms that you have put forward. Many times the issue of partnerships, the issue of collaboration, the issue of cooperation, the issue of ownership, the issue of empowerment. So it seems really like that the approach that you are proposing or that you are implementing is a whole of government and a whole of society. You're bringing everyone together through a collaborative approach in implementing those transformative actions. And you're talking about transparency, how you're using data for enhancing transparency towards citizens. I think this is an exceptional example, ITFI, and we look forward to see how that will roll out in the implementation, and hopefully reading your VLR in a monitoring process of those activities. Please, as for the other speakers, if you mind staying connected in case of any question, but being mindful of time as we have yet our last speaker, I hope that we have solved the technical issues also for our Tanzanian colleague, Stella Sassita. Stella, can you hear us? Stella is a senior economist at the Department of Local Governments of the President Office, Regional Administration and Local Governments of the Government of Tanzania. But I don't think that we managed to solve those issues yet, which is fine. I guess that we need to be also mindful of Stella. Yes, you are able to at least unlock your camera. Can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself? Sounds like it's not. Stella, while you're trying to unmute yourself today, I've been mindful of everyone's time. I would like to pass the floor to our colleague, Laura Petrella. Laura will be, I see, sorry, Laura, before jumping towards you, I see there is a hand on, if you don't mind. I have an hand up from the speakers. Thanks a lot, Laura. Aziz, I see your hand is up. You have any question? Okay, no, then Laura, I'm coming back to you for some closing remarks, solely from the back and forth. Laura, first of all, thanks a lot for taking the time. I know that your sections retreat is ongoing these days, so having you and making yourself available for us is extremely appreciated. I would.
I think I'm online.
Yes. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Aziz. I can hear you, Aziz.
Great. I think IDFI made a very good presentation on how the city of Samarinda have been able to, implement the VLRs, But I think we also represent
Aziz,
the local government
Aziz,
in Ghana.
Can I ask you to introduce yourself, because we don't know you?
Good. I'm Abdulaziz Halim, and I'm the Development Planning Officer for West Gonja Municipal Assembly, a local government in Ghana. And we are also doing our best trying to implement the VLRs at the subnational level. And I think this program is an eye-opener, because listening to IDFI's presentation on how they have been able to strategically, implemented the VAR, action-oriented manner, I think is something that we all have to, adopt, in achieving the SDGs. So I think I would like her to share with me the strategies, so that I think we'll be in line, we'll be able to follow, the way the Samarinda city government have been able to do that. Because it's quite difficult here trying to bring people together, in order to, see how best they've been able to, address poverty-related issues and health and social-related actions. So I think if you could connect me with IDFI so that we would share ideas and strategies. Thank you.
Aziz, thanks a lot for this question, and absolutely the way forward and the way that we hope these workshops or presentation will end is to further peer learning and connection. So it will be a pleasure for our teams to connect you with IDFI, and hopefully some more exchanges and learning can arise from that. So if you don't mind, we will do this right after the workshop. Laura?
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Martino. Dear colleagues and partners and VLRs enthusiasts, I'm happy to have the opportunity to come at the end of this session, where the discussion has been, or at least the case presented have been quite lively and covering many different areas. So I'm really wanting to express the gratitude to all the partners and the speakers, and everyone also connected, the large community that is connected for the commitment towards the sustainable development and the successful implementation of SDGs. It's something that brings all of us together. So I'm Laura Petrella. I am actually leading UN Habitat section on urban planning, finance and economy. And in a way, in the work that I do every day, I am working on many of the processes and the, let's say, activities at city level, which during this discussion were the ones where the VLR wants to connect with. I think voluntary local review processes are extremely relevant in relation to the delivery or the achievement of the SDGs, and it is very interesting to have this discussion with a number of panelists that have presented different ways of how this process of linking, you know, what is eminently a analytical and a monitoring tool with action actually on the ground and delivery of concrete results. I think the shaping of this connection and this process is extremely important and takes many different forms. We have heard the efforts in different contexts in Finland, where there has been the strengthening of multi-level cooperation through use of these tools. We have listened very interesting insights from international financing institution, let's say international financing private sector actually, on now reaching impact on the SDG and the criteria they use, which is completely, let's say, a new field of exploration in a way for this community to a large extent. So many presentations, but a common feature, which I think is really the fact that we cannot avoid the discussion on transforming the SDGs analysis and monitoring into action, because that is really where all this has to land and to bring us to. So the action-oriented VLR methodology is really its aim is really to take and to show the concrete steps in this direction. And I think the way it does it is very practical. It provides a structured and detailed work plan anchored on the principle that has probably been already mentioned, but you know, the practicality so that it can be easily implemented through steps that are relevant for real world scenarios, in a way to improve also the efficiency and effectiveness of the monitoring activities. The adaptability, it is an approach that can be adapted to the different context in the region, at different scale as well, and in different settings. So, which of course is very important to be able to cover the diversity of situation where the SDGs need to be addressed. And also it's evidence-based because it is coming from a collective experience of over 250 VLRs experiences. The work of the Habitat team, of course, which has been excellent in this respect, and all the other partners and peers that have been involved in the, let's say, in the review of the tools, so that it is actually credible and rigorous in a way. So I think I just want to conclude somehow this session, not with a conclusion, but I think some step forward maybe. I think fundamentally three areas. On one side, we know that assessing the state of the SDGs and doing the local reviews, it is effective and it is an excellent tool to identify development soft spots and help to prioritize action or let's say needs at the local level. So it has a lot of, let's say, added value in terms of overcoming sectoral approaches, sectoral analysis, and giving a let's say, 360 degrees overview, no, of the status of a territory. It is also transversal and can interconnect with different development processes and issues. So I think that as a tool for the assessment and pointing us in the right direction is very relevant. But I think also, and this is the second point, of course, it is not only important to point out in the direction where we have to go, but also can be used, and it is used to check where we are arriving. So it is not only a point of departure, but also a point of arrival in a sense. So we can define priorities but at the same time use VLR and the data, etc., for the continuous monitoring of the effectiveness of the development strategy that are deployed. And I think this is this cycle, it's very important also to inform, let's say, the choices that are made in between and assess the value and the effectiveness of the decision that are made in terms of working on the achievement of the SDG. So for action, this is very important. It's very important to have a possibility to look back and look forward into adjusting our action and our intervention. But the third message is that actually in between, there is a lot of work to do. So what happens in between the assessment points and the analysis of the outcomes requires actually important work connecting actors. And this has to start early in the process, of course, and starts with the type of process around the reviews. Needs to also be anchored in specific tools and partnership, and needs also to bring in different partners. I think speaking with the finance institution is very interesting, because these are partners that we need to bring in the conversation probably very soon. No? So it is, I think it is our responsibility in a way as the community committed to the SDGs to really, not only in terms of the process, but also in terms of the choices of the actions and the solution, to be very focused and very rigorous as well. So I would say 3 or 4 things that are important. We need to start up front. So, and I think has been said, not to keep the process isolated from the other decision-making processes within the city. Keep the coordination and the knowledge, let's say, flowing within this process, and then afterwards quite systematically. Keep using cutting-edge solution and learn about those. I think as much as you know you have a problem, the solution is still maybe still quite far, and there is a community out there also that can provide the solution and ideas. And I think the very important issue of the finance actors, we need to keep developing the right relation, the right expertise, it has been mentioned, and the right narrative also around the SDGs and around the relation and the role of the private finance for the achievement of the SDG. So while in a way we have an excellent tool, it is also very important that we break down and we go depth of what it means action and the right type of action. So on the side, of UN Habitat, we have a lot of tools and a lot of practices as well that can be put into the conversation, and would be worthwhile to look at for their relevance or less for the SDGs in particular. And I think many of the partners that are in this call and that are in the VLR movement have as many and as good ones. So I think that is the next one of the next steps. I mean, which this tool, the action-oriented VLR methodology, it is actually pointing at us in this direction. And I think it is very important that we continue to support this process so that the VLR increasingly become impactful on the real conditions on the ground in cities, improve the quality of life in a sort of holistic way, but touching the right suffering points in every single context. So I would like to just, in closing this session, thank again everybody that has been participating in the sorry, I disappeared. Participated in this session. Of course, all those that participated in developing the methodology and that are now probably also testing it on the ground. And we hope that this methodology, the action-oriented VLR methodology, will be actually useful tool for everybody and more cities to join us in this effort to catch up, let's say, with the SDGs achievement. We have little time, but I think we are getting more and more relevant tools to be effective in this regard. So thank you very much, everybody, and to the next steps, indeed.
Thank you a lot, Laura. Thanks a lot for these concluding remarks. And this closes for today's session. It is certainly not the last one of the year. We are going to have few new appointments to follow, both online as well as in person in the main events. Stay connected for the high-level political forum. Stay connected for the World Urban Forum happening in Cairo in November. In the meantime, we will organize a few other of these technical exchanges, such as the one happened 2 weeks ago. And in the chat, you have the link to the methodology. In the chat, you have also an email that you can reach UN Habitats to with regards to all the work on SDGs. Feel free to do so. And thanks again for being with us today. And we keep in touch very soon. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you.